So last night I made and uploaded episode 9 of Equestria Redacted, and you call yourself the voice of reason. Now, I am not here to, redact or retract anything I said in that episode. I still think it's a good episode and would recommend you watch it. Now, you do not need to watch to really understand this one, though. As you see, the only real story I covered was Voice of Reason's journal about Lily Pete. Now, the reason being, I had a lot to say about that, and it stretched to over a half hour. However, I was kind of disappointed when I uploaded that because there were quite a few other stories I wished to cover. So I figured I'd cover those today because there's a chance that by next week these stories will either be irrelevant or some new stuff will come up, and it will keep snowballing. See my eventual segment about midnight chimes that is still yet to exist. We'll start off with a horse news article. I Love Compossible a Lot allegedly harasses vendor attendee at recent California Brony convention. I briefly touched upon this last night, however my only comment was KP is not Jack Nolan. And I didn't even really explain what I meant by that. Essentially, the article talks about I Love Compossible a lot. And how she essentially did this weird thing at a convention where she tried to set up a booth or a table or something, and her only real way of compensating them for that was exposure. I'll just read you the tales Horse News tells from apparently some of the vendors, just to show you what I mean. So maybe 3 days before the convention, KP puts out her tweet offering to trade exposure for splitting a table at HRPC. I replied to it saying that she knows tables are expensive and this is a bad deal, warning others not to take it because exposure doesn't pay. Normally I wouldn't give a fuck, but with her history of exploiting creators when she is a creator herself, has soared my opinion of her. It's one thing to just be the idea guy and not really have a clue as to how much work creating is. It's other to know exactly how much work is, but screw over other creators anyway. She replied to me saying that she never said she wouldn't pay for the table. Well, okay, then what's the issue? And I just blew it off because I stopped caring enough to continue the conversation. I considered it done. Now Friday, at the convention, I'm setting up my vendor table and have two friends helping me out. The man who I can only describe as the exact clone of Daddy Derek from Cool Cat and in the same age range, Jack Nolan, approaches me. And yeah, this just essentially goes into a rant about Jack Nolan from then on out, who, notably, is not KP. Let's look at the second one. This one is another example. It's from an event. This is from another vendor. So about 2 weeks ago, HN posted this on their Twitter. It was I'll pay you an exposure.jpg, and there was a picture of the tweet I mentioned earlier from KP. And I replied with, wow, this is kind of fucked. It's not that much to split a table. That was it. I didn't think much of it at the time, and I almost forgot I even tweeted it. Friday morning of the con, I was setting up a table, and I had a guy, Jack Nolan, come up to me and tell me to continue KP's table to talk about something. Okay. So again, this is just Jack Nolan. And the third one, this is from an attendee. On the Saturday of the convention, I was standing at the booth of Ray Deerwood, I have no clue how to pronounce that, discussing a commission. At the time, I noticed Jack Nolan standing behind me. Did he just appear behind you? Was there smoke around? And yeah, these articles aren't even really complaining about KP. They're more just complaining about Jack Nolan, which is fine. I talked about Jack Nolan before. I don't want to say I think he's an idiot. I think he's just kind of boring. However, if that's the case, may I ask, why is KP in the tags, but Jack Nolan isn't? And for that matter, why is KP in the title, but not even KP Bodyguard or something isn't? We don't even mention him once the title when he's essentially the center of the story. It doesn't make any sense to me. This next story actually starts with me. You see, I was on a Twitter. I forget which brony Twitter it was. But I saw an image of someone named Mimi Cage, who, if you do not know, wanted to remain neutral in the Toon thing, and then thought that meant something. I don't get it either. But essentially, she created a You Caring, which was a fundraiser for her to go to High Roller, which is a brony convention. And I simply posted that with, and if you were wondering, it was at about $1,300 of its $2,000 goal. And I simply posted it with, "This is why I'm so skeptical of GoFundMe." Of course, it was You Caring. I didn't read that at the time. Seriously, why? And then we had this amazing tweet from Skaven Slayerano, who, if you do not know, essentially is one of the biggest E4B fans out there. It actually used to be him commenting on my work was how I knew E4B had an article up on me. Of course, they don't really write things on me anymore. But he wrote this tweet, and he later retracted it, but I love it so much that I'm gonna read it out here. "Wow, aren't you a scumbum?" I'll admit, I've never been called a scumbum before this. "You drop your pants for cash." Oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. "If it were to help Patchwork or Buttons." Have I ever been particularly nice to Buttons? And this wasn't to help someone, this was to get him to go to a convention. "I care about the people who were hurt by Zach, but only those who don't hate Lily Pete. I suppose empathy is a foreign emotion for you rat folk." In case you do not know, he has this theory where essentially Lily Pete is like the Rat King from TMNT or something. I don't fully get it either. I think he thinks it's clever. But apparently he didn't even look at the picture. Because when someone called him out on it, I can't find the tweet anymore either. I think he deleted it. Give me a second. Correction, the tweets just wasn't showing up for me before I went to record it. Essentially, he said, "Oh, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just a basic help me get out of a bad place, GoFundMe." So he didn't even look at the picture. Beacon of honesty from E4B right there. But anyway, Cyberpunk Pone, aka Vita, retweeted this and said, "One of the few times I'll retweet Ephrom." He needed to make it clear this is one of the few occasions he will, because if you do not know, when brony fandom members associate with me, they risk exploding. Okay? Just literally exploding. "Stop using GoFundMes to go to cons, you greedy shits. Get a fucking job and save up your money, or suck it up and don't go." I agree with that, and I've been calling out these things for a year. I remember a few years ago, one of the first times I did it was, funnily enough, on Voice of Reason. When he had this GoFundMe to go to BronyCon, and he didn't offer any rewards. And then I think it was him and Sega Sister did that the next year, and they put urgent in a donation. Like, it was on like a Golden Fox stream or something. And I was just sitting there thinking, your vacations aren't urgent. And then, of course, I had a whole bunch of people come to say, "No, you see, emotions, yeah." Yeah, I don't care. But this is my favorite part. This comes from us from XDX Darkus, who is a pretty good brony Twitter account. Not one of my personal favorites, but I like him well enough. He had this to say: "Vita, that is You Caring. It's a charity site, and what Mimi is doing is against You Caring's rules. You Caring only does charities. Outside of charity is not allowed. This is not charity." Whoops. I love that. She could have gone to any site she wanted. She could have gone to like Kickstarter or GoFundMe. Instead, she went to the one site that wouldn't put up with it. Oh, wow. That's just amazing. But then the day this happened, the day Vita, partly thanks to me, called her out on this, she tweeted this: Hey guys, thank you for all the help, really, but I realized I need to make it on my own. I'm more willing to kill myself in work than rely on help that I have little faith in. Well, that's odd. You had a lot of faith in them earlier, and it was actually showing off. You were over 60% of your way to your goal, almost 70% there. It's hard to say, but it's honestly how I feel. I thank you all for the help I've then it's a thread. Gotten so far, I really am, but now it's time for me to rely on myself. The only way I can be sure, at least somewhat, that I have control in the chaos of my life. She's a little bit of a poet, if you cannot tell. Commissions will be complete in the next few days, so if you have one waiting... I figured I would end this segment with a quick little GoFundMe or Kickstarter or You Caring or whatever site it's hosted on that you should care about. That you should even donate to, because it is worth it. This is a GoFundMe from a woman who is currently homeless. This is because when her husband took her into her household and he lived with his mother, essentially he and his wife didn't like them very much, so because of that, they're kicked out. If you do not know, this person, I'm not sure how to pronounce the first name, although the last name is Katz, is the wife of Event Horizon, who is a somewhat friend of the show, and someone who I think makes pretty good content. He is currently homeless right now. This GoFundMe only has $335 of its intended $1,450 goal. And that's a tragedy. It clearly needs more. So with that said, I'd recommend you all donate to it. Now, I feel like there's one other guy we should be talking about. You know, with my infamous hatred of pedophiles in the fandom, I like how that's become an infamous thing, by the way. Oh, how dare I hate pedophiles! Those virtuous people. It feels like there's one man I have not yet discussed that I should have, that I actually promised someone I would discuss this week. Who is that? It's not Anthony, I know, because we talked about him a few weeks ago. Oh god. What's his name? What's his name? Is it Cusco? Oh my god, Cusco's a pedophile! Okay, the actual guy happens to be a man by the name of Frozen Dusk. And he's going to be the topic of the rest of this episode, as he is a pedophile. There's no nice way to put it, he is a pedophile. In case you do not know, Frozen Dusk is 21 years old. He is currently dating someone who is 14 years old, under the legal age of consent in every state. Whoops. Now, it should be known that at the time of this recording, as far as I'm aware, Frozen Dusk has not done anything intimate with the girl. However, to be honest, I don't trust him. Now, maybe that's just my pessimism sinking in, or the fact that typically when a 21-year-old dates a 14-year-old, that doesn't end up very well. However, just forgive me if I'm a little bit skeptical, is all I'm saying, that Frozen is this completely virtuous, wholesome man. Lastly, some may want me to talk about, for no good reason, response to Vita. However, he didn't watch the video Vita made, so you know what? I didn't watch the video Reason made, and thus I assume it's about quantum physics or something, which I think was a really odd move of a video about Vita. But I don't know. I didn't watch it. I'm Ephrom, and good night. It's just going to be episode 9 for all of eternity, I swear. It's going to be episode 9.75, then episode 9.875, then episode 9, and we're never going to reach episode 10. It's just going to go like this forever. Oh, we're still recording.